Howdy folks, Mark Serbu, gun designer, gun nut. If you're building a GB-22 or you're considering buying the plans to build a GB-22, this video is for you. If you're not doing either of those things, turn it off now or you're about to be bored to death. So to get started here, just a really quick update. There are a few questions that have cropped up along the way, so I'm going to try to clarify that here for you. Alright, so in the first drawing, G22 10,000 Rev A. It's just a basic overall assembly drawing. Shows all the parts, shows basically how it goes together. For some reason, the actual picture of the spring disappeared, and I'm sorry about that. Some of you have it, some of you don't. So there's a balloon number 3 pointing at nothing. But in any case, this drawing's fine. The only thing it's missing is the definition of the spring. And as you can see here, I've put in all the specs for it. So you should be able to buy a spring to that spec or make one. We will be selling them. Watch out for that in the near future. Okay, now the second sheet of the G22 10,000 Rev A, it shows the slide assembly and also shows the firing pin. Now, obviously, feel free to just take the parts here and make them from, you can machine this all from one part. You don't need to screw it all together. You can just machine one big block into that. Some people have already done that. Some people are making it 2 pieces, some 3 pieces, some machine the firing pin in place, some don't. And obviously, if you're going to make it out of, well, even 2 or 3 pieces, you can machine a pocket in the face of that as opposed to having a pocket in the barrel. It's just one of those things. It's a choice. I'd prefer to actually have the pocket on the slide face because then it's a lot easier to pick the shell out of the barrel. But I'm showing it this way because most people can get a hold of a counterbore tool and just make a pocket on the barrel side. Then they can actually mill into this. But anyway, lots of leeway you can take here. If you do want to pin the firing pin in like that, then yeah, as it shows there, Loctite solder or stake it in place. One thing I left out, of course, you could press it in place. Hopefully that's pretty self-explanatory. As you can see, I sanitize these drawings. I can't have them out there with all the dimensions and everything are all be in trouble with ITAR, the International Traffic in Arms Regulation. All right, now G22 28,000. Obviously, I sanitized the crap out of this one. Now the issue people seem to be wondering about here, it's like, okay, well, there's ASTM A36 for the material or 4130, and I say, heat treat 4130. Heat treat is always optional on these. If you're going to turn this into a gun buyback, you're not going to want to heat treat any of it. And a third choice I wish I'd put on the drawing, and I've actually started to make some myself, there's 4142 pre-hard plate, which is really convenient to use because that way you just machine it, it's done. You don't have to worry about heat treating after the fact. And it's a much higher quality route to go. And that's, if you're going to make a keeper, I would definitely recommend 4142 pre-hard plate. Obviously, there's some tool steel plates that are not too outrageously priced. And you know what? You could use brass as well. But again, all kinds of artistic license you can take with the plans. It's pretty hard to screw these up. I didn't include sheet 2 because if I had sheet 2 sitting there on the screen, you could just capture it and bring it in, and then it's ITAR violation again. Okay, now the barrel, the G22 30,000. This has caused a little bit of confusion just because I've showed a few different ways to do it. Now, one of the most important things for this gun, if you're making it fire from an open bolt, which is the only plan set I've shown so far, you want to use that match chamber, mainly because the bullet gets engraved on the rifling. So you shove the round in there, it won't pop out or it won't fall out. If you just chamber this with a standard 22 reamer, you lift that gun above horizontal and the round is going to fall out, and that's kind of inconvenient. So with the match chamber, you shove the round there, you need to push it in a little bit, but it's not going anywhere. And obviously once the bolt has shot out of there, the case can come right out, no big deal. Now, if you looked at the second video I posted on the GB-22, I included a little bit on the end showing the rifling tool that I made. We will be selling kits with a rifled barrel in it, but at this point, if you're making it on your own and what people have done so far, you just drill this thing however you want it and put your own barrel liner in there. Barrel liner, stub from some other kind of 22, whatever. And as I said for the last part, I actually prefer to have the counterbore on the slide face as opposed to having it here on the barrel face, and you can easily do that. Of course, adjust your firing pin position accordingly. Now on the okay, I'll address the note here about the the slots may go full length apart. If you've got hardly any tools and you're just using a hacksaw or something to knock those grooves out and hopefully finish up with a file, it's a lot easier to make the grooves go full length. So that's all that's about. Note number 4 here: adjust dimension to achieve the total clearance in the frame. That's just based on whatever you find for your plate there. Make that slot narrower or wider just so it's a snug fit or very slight slip fit. Now on the second sheet of the barrel page, I just showed some sample variations for the barrel. The easiest way for most people is just to drill a hole in there, whatever. I think the first ones I made, I either drilled a 7/16 or a 1/2 inch hole, and I just put a 1/2 inch diameter piece of 22 barrel stub in there, and I actually welded both ends and faced them off. And what's cool about doing it this way, especially, I didn't show it on here, but if you make yourself a flat on the bottom of the barrel, the round flange on the barrel, you can have that thing key the barrel in place, and you can have the flange rest against part of the frame. So if you end up making yourself a 9mm down the road and you want an extractor slot in there, this way it puts the barrel in a known orientation for that. But here it's just shown with look at like maybe a 3.5 inch barrel, a 4 inch barrel, a little piece of bushing there, and of course a screw-on threaded end cap. That way, if you ever want to run it with a suppressor, these are just basically take a look and see how, just some ideas on how you want to arrange that. And of course, you can make the whole barrel block as long as you want to. I mean, there's no end to how you can modify this thing. The G-22 41010, the slide section right, it's actually a mirror image of the other side, except for the holes. It's obviously threaded on one side, countersunk, and through hole on the other side. All right, now the slide section left, G-22 41020, this is what the other one is a mirror image of. The material on this, steel. 1018, whatever, 12L14. This is another part. If you want to get really crazy here, you can use a piece of brass, any old brass. Now brass is heavier than steel, so keep that in mind. Actually, on one that I'm working on right now, the side plates are actually made of aluminum, and if you want something that's going to eject, you need to knock some mass off there. But we got to be careful with that, because you make it too light, you're going to end up blowing up some rounds or blowing cases. So you got to know what you're doing before you do that. So don't just do tread carefully if you're going to go that route. Please know what you're doing. You can case harden it if you want. Obviously, for gun buyback, you're not going to do that. You're not going to do the radiuses. You're not going to do any of the slots to make it all pretty. You're just going to throw it together and get rid of it. But ideally, you want something that's a reasonable gun. Like if I were making a keeper, I would make this out of 41-42 pre-hard like the others. Or you can use some kind of 86-20 case harden if you want to get really crazy. But you want to make it purdy, sure, brass or bronze or copper or whatever. Make it steampunk, whatever you want. I'm really looking forward to somebody doing that sort of thing. And one thing I didn't touch on with the assembly here is, if you want to drill that spring clearance, that little radius you see towards the back of it, just clamp these two sides together over not the piece that goes in the center, but just a scrap piece of like what goes in the center. Make sure their orientation is correct, and then just drill down the center of that scrap piece, but to the depth that is shown here, and you'll automatically get your spring clearance. Hopefully you understand what I'm saying on that. Okay, the slide center section, G-22 41015, it's probably the most complicated part aside from the frame, but you can simplify it a whole lot if you don't care about the safety of the thing. The notch closest to the forward face of this is the sear notch, and you got to have that or the gun won't work. But the secondary notch, which is toward the middle of the part, that is like a safety. So if somehow this thing were to slip off, like the trigger screwed up or failed a little bit, or you bumped it, whatever, the slide will come forward, and then the trigger will catch on the secondary notch just before it's fully closed. So that's just a little bit of redundancy there. It's kind of only safety it has. So theoretically, you're not running around with an open bolt gun with the bolt open and around in the chamber unless you're nuts with this particular setup anyway. And again, just like the other parts, it's called out as 1018, but it could easily be something else. If you just turn it into a gun buyback, you could make it just crap, 12L14. And again, maybe brasses or aluminum, but you got to be careful with that stuff, because it's not going to withstand the force of a cartridge against it if you don't do it out of something at least reasonably strong, case hardened, etc. This could be a perfectly decent gun out of 1018 with a decent case hardening on it. And of course, one thing I forgot to touch on, it's called out on a few of these, the finish, manganese phosphate, also known as parkerizing. Yeah, you know, manganese phosphate, zinc phosphate, you can blue the thing, you can paint it, you can just leave it polish, whatever you want. You know, all that stuff's optional. You're turning it into a gun buyback, no finish at all. Or maybe, you know, rattle can black, flat black spray paint just to make it look more vicious or something. But definitely the finish is optional. Thanks for watching. I hope you found that informative. If you got any questions at all, please feel free to email me, but please try to keep it to really tough questions that only I can answer. If you can find your answer on Google or somewhere else first, I'd really appreciate it, because I've got hundreds of these out here in addition to all the other stuff I'm doing on a day-to-day basis. I'm really slammed around here. But again, thanks for watching. See you next time.